Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to dive into this one with you today because we're dissecting something completely fascinating. We're going to take a really close look at the United Kingdom's unique, highly engineered strategy for a post-labor economy. In a world that is changing literally by the minute, figuring out how a nation prepares for the future of work, and perhaps even the end of it, is easily one of the most defining questions of our time.
So think about this for a second. How exactly does a country prepare for the end of work? By doubling down on it. It's a massive paradox, right? But as we're going to see, this is the exact deliberate wager the UK is making right now in the face of the AI revolution. Let's unpack how that actually works.
Section 1. The Pragmatist's Hedge. Post-Brexit, the UK essentially woke up to a blank slate to design its economic future. And it finds itself navigating right down the middle of two extreme global philosophies. On the one hand, we've got the European Union's maximalist approach, heavy rules, high protection, a strict regulated first mentality. And then on the other side, you have the United States, whose instinct is basically to just leave it to the market and let innovation run wild.
The UK firmly positions itself as this entirely third thing. It's built on a leaner but still real welfare state, a deliberately light touch on AI regulation, and a relentless, almost moral emphasis on work. They're making a huge bet that extreme adaptability and looking incredibly attractive to businesses is going to serve them way better than relying on sheer scale or heavy protectionism.
Section 2. The Universal Credit Machine.
To really grasp this strategy, we absolutely have to talk about the massive administrative genius of the 2012 Universal Credit Reform. Because before this, the UK had this unbelievable thicket of separate welfare payments. The main problem? If you went out and earned just one extra pound, you could hit a financial cliff edge and literally lose more than a pound in benefits. So step 1 of the reform, merge 6 of those tangled benefits into one. Step 2, apply a single smooth taper so that your support gradually smoothly decreases as your earnings go up. And step 3, those dangerous welfare cliff edges are completely erased.
The entire core promise driving that system was simple, and they repeated it constantly. Work always pays. For a country that was absolutely terrified of the benefits trap, the idea that people were financially better off just staying home, this single, smooth taper was an incredibly elegant problem-solving mechanism for its era.
But here's the catch. To make sure work always pays, you actually need jobs for people to step into. To guarantee that, the UK pairs universal credit with a highly flexible labor market. It is significantly easier to hire and fire in the UK than it is on the continent. Now, the current government's Employment Rights Bill is nudging some of those day one protections back up a bit, but the baseline remains incredibly fluid. The whole goal is to keep employers eager to hire by making sure the rules don't tie their hands.
Section 3. The Light Touch AI Bet.
This brings us to a very deliberate contrast with the European Union. The UK has actively declined to build a sweeping, horizontal AI act. Instead, they're taking what they call a principles-based sectoral approach. They rely on 5 cross-cutting principles: safety, transparency, fairness, accountability, and contestability. And instead of launching some new mega-regulator, they just have existing agencies like Ofcom or the CMA enforce these rules within their own specific sectors. They are deliberately avoiding a rush to regulate because they desperately want to court tech investment.
Now, that definitely doesn't mean they're ignoring safety. The UK actually leads the world right now in testing frontier model safety through their AI Security Institute, which has recently taken on a much sharper national security focus. But they do this while pointedly staying away from any sweeping economy-wide rules that might spook developers away from London.
If we step back and look across all these different policy levers, a really clear profile of the UK's core identity emerges. Income floor, partial. Work and time, partial. Skills, institutions, partial. And when it comes to capital and ownership, it's minimal. The defining characteristic of the British model is being heavily hedged on absolutely every lever. They are all in on nothing. This is the exact profile of a country trying with all its might to keep its options open.
Section 4. The Signature Tension.
So this perfectly engineered system has a hidden flaw, and it hits like a sudden drop on a roller coaster. Universal credit is superbly designed for a world where jobs exist, and the main problem is simply getting people to take them. But what if the jobs themselves thin out? What happens to an entire national system obsessed with pushing people into work when AI actually reduces the demand for entry-level labor?
Because the harsh reality is this: you simply cannot sanction someone into a job that doesn't exist. Universal credit, with all of its brilliant mechanics, is a solution for a labor supply problem. If we enter a true labor demand crisis, where the work literally isn't there anymore, that entire machinery is going to completely misfire.
The conditionality baked into the UK system, the constant work search requirements, the mandatory appointments, the threat of sanctions, it's fundamentally a suspicion mechanism. It assumes claimants could work but simply won't. But if AI starts widely displacing those jobs, that massive administrative machine basically transforms into a tool for punishing people for a job shortage that they had absolutely no hand in causing.
Section 5. The limits of hedging.
And this isn't just theoretical anymore. This tension is already breaking out into real-world policy panic. Facing massive fiscal pressure heading into the 2026 reforms, the government's reflex was a total balancing act. On one hand, they tightened the system, literally halving and freezing the health element of universal credit for new claimants. But then, on the other hand, they protected the baseline, lifting the standard allowance and scrapping the two-child limit. When push comes to shove, they are choosing to condition harder and punish not working, while desperately trying to protect the universal baseline.
There is a very dark side to that kind of reflex. The noble idea of make work pay quietly tips over into make not working hurt. The recent cut to disability benefits acts as a perfect canary in the coal mine here. It shows us exactly how a system built entirely for labor supply reacts when the fiscal and structural pressure really mounts.
And it's not just welfare where this tension is exploding. Remember that light touch AI bet we talked about? Well, lighter rules naturally mean British workers have far fewer legal guardrails when AI algorithms are used to hire them, manage their productivity, or even fire them, especially compared to their peers over in the EU.
Which brings us to the ultimate brilliant irony of the UK's AI hedge. Because the European market is so massively important, any UK firm selling into the EU is going to get caught by the sweeping EU AI Act regardless. So British workers absorb less domestic protection, but British businesses don't actually escape the heavy reach of Brussels anyway. It is the absolute ultimate hazard of trying to play the middle ground.
So, when you pull all these threads together, the picture is super clear. A smooth taper in a welfare system is just genuinely solid administration, but the heavy sanctions regime, that is a bolted-on political choice. For a mid-sized open economy like the UK, splitting the difference between the US and the EU is, frankly, a highly sensible survival strategy. But keeping your options open everywhere means you are leading on absolutely nothing, and most crucially, hedging fails the exact moment the true crisis you hedged against, a genuine post-labor shock, actually arrives.
I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought. As we stare down the barrel of an incredibly unpredictable, AI-driven future, is keeping your options open truly the safest bet a country can make? Or is it just a failure to choose? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this structured look into the UK's strategy has sparked your curiosity about where the future of work is actually heading. Until next time, keep analyzing and keep learning.